What up guys, CM back again. Sorry for the lack of videos over the last week, first and foremost. Most of it was just kind of a lack of willingness to do much more than stream when it comes to World of Tanks. And the topic of today's video is the reason why. The Emil one. So we got a tank review for you today, guys. This one's gonna be a rant one. You're gonna love this one. So the Emil one, I recently 3-marked this on stream. This thing, let me put it this way. This might be the worst 3-mark grind I've ever done. I actually feel at this point like this is actually the worst tier 8 heavy in the game currently, with how things stand. Especially when you take into account only the ones with standard matchmaking. And hell, I actually feel like this thing is actually not as capable as the heavies with preferential matchmaking and even some of the mediums as far as tier 8s go. Certainly, I feel like it's one of the worst heavies tier for tier in the game. I'm going to show you guys why. Why I feel that way. So I'm going to start with the gun. I'm going to start as always with the stats that we see here on tanks.gg, working my way left to right. So starting with your gun. So your base DPM with this tank is just under 2,000. Which, you know, like you think, okay, just under 2,000, that's not too bad. So I'll get on to why you're probably not going to be that I guess encouraged later on. So, base DPM just under 2,000. That's not awful for base DPM, even for an autoloader. 360 damage per shot. That's not bad. But then we get on to the part where we start to see the struggles begin. 217 standard ammo pen. That's kind of just around the average for tier 8 heavies. It's around 220, give or take a few millimeters. That's fine. But the thing is, when you're 3-marking tanks, you often see some very tough vehicles, and particularly when you're in a heavy, you often have to focus down some of the tougher targets in the game. This can be a problem for this tank. Do we look at the premium pen? Yeah, 242. Yeah, good luck fighting even a Type 4 heavy, or hell, even some same tier heavies. Good luck fighting a defender with that thing. Yeah, that's APCR as well. So unlike heat and unlike AP, APCR doesn't do as well against angled armor as those rounds. So angled armor will actually weaken this ammo quite significantly, actually. In fact, to the extent, depending on the angle and the thickness of armor, anywhere around 15 to 20 millimeters, depending on the existing thickness. It's usually a percentage-based thing, from what I've seen. So yeah, we're straight off not a great start for this tank. You've got a 3-round clip with actually the reload time on this is not that bad. Your base reload time is 26 seconds. Obviously, with like crew skills and food, you can bring this down. So if I put on, I'm going to put on food here. So that brings it down to 25. And let's take Brothers in Arms. Brings it down to 24.79. You get a couple of seconds less. Not too bad. So decent clip potential. You've got a 3-second gap between each shell, which is not that bad considering it's 360 alpha damage. And you've got, but then we get on to another terrible part about this. The aim time. Base is 3.07 second aim time. That is really bad. The base dispersion of 0.36 is not awful, but when you consider, yeah, you've got pretty bad soft stats as well. Yeah, that's not great. So what I actually found running this thing is that when I was going for gun marks, that I really kind of had to focus on gun handling and also view range, and I'll get onto that in a moment as well. And I'll show you guys the equipment that I used to 3-mark this thing once we've gotten to the end of these stats before we go on to the armor profile. So, next up, we do actually have another positive side. Shell velocity. The shells in this thing are very, very fast, so you don't have to give much lead, but you will have to fully aim every single shot. Because RNG on this gun, oh dear, it's bad. This gun does not like to hit things at all. I'll say that right now. You have to be either up close and personal or get lucky to actually hit things with this gun, and even more so if you're not fully aiming. You got a decent ammo capacity though, 57 rounds, that's pretty nice actually. And so you got a pretty high potential damage, which is also pretty nice. You're not going to run out of ammo in this thing. You're never going to run out of ammo in this thing in any match, no matter what you do. So that is actually nice, because there are a lot of tanks in the game that have a fairly low ammo capacity of, you know, like 20 to, between, like some as low as like 20, like even like a tier 10, like you've got the Manticore, which has like next to no ammo, so that frequently runs out. AMX 1357 as well, another example of a tank that has very low ammo capacity for sometimes how much damage you need to be doing. Moving on, mobility. Okay, so your top speed on paper is pretty nice, and I say on paper because you're never going to get to that 50 kilometers an hour top speed without going down a hill. Your reverse speed of 16 kilometers an hour is actually not bad, but you can see right here, horsepower of 380. That is not good, because that only gives us 13 horsepower per ton. Now you might be thinking, oh, but GM, there's other tanks that only get that with turbo, like let's say the Ferdinand. That's the same tier tank that pretty big, pretty slow. Well, yeah, but that thing has better better terrain resistances, and is bigger. So the actual effect of this power to weight is actually less, because you're a bigger tank, so you're able to cross a greater distance. It doesn't feel as slow as this tank. This tank feels very, very, very slow. On flat ground, on hard terrain as well, I was only maybe averaging about 30 to 32, and it felt like it took a while to get there. And going up and down hills, yeah, good luck. So relocating in this tank, you have to be given a lot of time to do it. So retreating from flanks is often something you have to do very, very far in advance. It is rather frustrating, because it feels like if you have to relocate, which you often have to do in this tank to kind of help you, well, you often have to do in any tank to get the most out of the entire match, to be able to help your team to the best of your abilities. You often have to reposition or push forward, or you know, take different angles. And also, you often find that if you need to do this, that if you make a mistake of going somewhere and need to rectify it, you need to be able to get out of there, right? Yeah, you can't in this tank. It's very difficult in this tank to be able to get out of a bad situation. And some of you guys might be saying, but it's a heavy, surely it relies on its armor. Well, no, and I'll get onto that when we actually go over the armor profile. Moving on. Gun elevation and depression angles are actually pretty good. 12 degrees of gun depression, 15 of elevation, you know, fairly flexible there. That's not bad. That's, in fact, the gun depression, 12 degrees, that's pretty good. Then, the turret traverse. The turret traverse in this tank is very, very slow, 20.86 degrees a second. That turret turns really slow. That's, you know, that's getting towards like Ohhhh levels, like, you know, like Japanese super heavy levels. You know, the really big ones, which actually, funnily enough, the Ohhhh and indeed the German VK100, and I would also say the VK168, also known as the Mauerbrecher, actually have better turrets than this thing. In terms of effectiveness, in terms of armor. We'll get onto that when we look at the armor profile as well. The base armor stats, it says on what you'll see in the garage, it'll say 100 frontal on the hull, 35 on the sides, 30 on the rear. On the turret in the garage, it'll say 180 on the turret, 35 on the sides, 20 on the rear, and the tracks provide 30mm of spaced armor. You have 1400 health, which is a little on the low side for a tier 8 heavy. And obviously, then we've got all the different module health and stats as well. And it felt like this tank got its ammo rack damaged a lot when I was marking it. That might have just been me. It might have just felt like that, but it definitely did feel like every shot that went into your turret damaged your ammo rack. Camo, of course, it's a heavy. It doesn't have any, so yeah. And then we get on to another problem with this tank that I have: 360 meters base view range on a tier 8 heavy. Where I feel like when I was playing this tank, I actually feel like the only good things about this tank overall, the best things it has to work with are the gun depression and clip potential. And yeah, that's not good view range for a tank that really needs to be able to like see what it's shooting at first and foremost, to be able to get that clip potential off properly. In a lot of situations, that is going to hold you back a lot. So before we move on to the armor, I'm going to show you guys the setup that I used for 3 marking this tank. So straight away, I was using Bond optics. And there's a reason why I use these, because I was not using vents. So let's put on the crew. So I had Brothers in Arms, obviously camo paint. Obviously we had the view range skills, smooth ride. My crew had snapshot as well, safe stowage, and situational awareness. So these are the ones that all the skills that I had on that crew. And then we had food. So what you can see here, what this does, is this gives us a view range of 460. Now, when you're 3 marking tanks, you do want to optimize your view range as much as possible, because you want to optimize the assistance that you're doing as well as the damage you're doing. Now, actually, funnily enough, this is also what you want to be doing to win as many battles as you can, because obviously, if your team are able to consistently shoot tanks that are always being spotted, the more often their enemy tanks are spotted, the better for your team. Likewise, the more tanks are being tracked and immobilized, the better for your team as well. That gives them easier time shooting them if they're out of position, or if they're caught immobilized and they're able to go around. So, in fact, if anything, assistance damage is equally important to winning as actual damages, because often if you're spotting tanks, tracking them, the enemy team are going to be put under more pressure to avoid taking damage, which in turn will allow your team to reposition if need be. If enemy tanks are forced to fall back because of this, your team is obviously going to have a much easier time getting into better positions. And this does also buff the DPM to 2100. That's still not great for a tier 8 heavy. It's not bad for an autoloader. Still, it's not bad for an autoloader. But your gun handling still is not good. You got barely under 3 seconds aim time still. 2.87 you can see there. Dispersion drops to 0.34, which fully aimed, that doesn't seem bad, but the behavior of this gun when I was using it, it did not like going anywhere near the target. Then, again, your gun handling soft stats are still bad here before we put on anything else. But obviously these are just using skills and food here, so this is not what we're actually at for full equipment yet. Now, I also did use directives here to boost the view range even further. So I actually had about 470 meters, but Tanks.gg does not account for directives at the moment. So hopefully they add those at some point. That would be a nice thing to see. So I used the directive that buffed your optics. And the reason for that is because I didn't use vents. I was using improved rotation mechanism and vert stabs. In fact, I think I was using the upgraded bounty. Actually, yeah. Actually, no, I wasn't using the IRM. It was the bounty gun laying drive and vert stabs. So I did actually try the improved rotation module, but that didn't. I felt like that didn't really help that much in terms of gun handling. So I eventually settled on this. So you can see there, you've got the bounty gun laying drive there. You've got your vert stabs, and you've got your bounty, so your bond optics even. This resulted in dropping aim time to 2.55 seconds and buffed the dispersion rating for on the move to 0.18. turning the tank to 0.19 and turning the turret to 0.1. This did help, and mainly because it felt like I didn't have to aim quite as long because the soft stats weren't screwing over the actual bloom of the aiming circle as much. Now, the other option I could have used would have been the improved aiming module, so I could have gone for this here, and that lowers the actual overall size of the reticle, but at the same time, to get it to that 0.32, you've still got to aim that in fully. So the reason why I took the gun lane drive was to help get it to that fully aimed state as quickly as possible. So moving on to the armor next. So you can see that the 180mm plate is this kind of almost V-shaped section here. You do have a gun mantlet that is 250mm thick, but that's basically 250mm everywhere. There are a couple of spots of 85mm that are a little less in effectiveness, but yeah, so it's like 250 to 270 effective on the gun mantlet, depending where you hit and the angle that you hit it at, but there's a lot that's only 250. So your turret also has a couple of 150mm plates here and here. Those are at a better angle than your main turret plate, so they're actually more effective when pointing straight on. Obviously, if you turn your turret, you can see they become weaker. They become weak spots. There's also a tiny little spot here that people can pen you, depending on the angle. So if someone's got your tank like this, and they're aiming at your turret, they can actually pen you here. You can see that little gap there. I have actually been penned there before as well, so keep that in mind. There's also a tiny little bit of the turret right here. You see that little red bar there? That's 250mm thick, so that can be... That can sometimes bounce shots, but very, very rarely, because of course it is tiny. This little part up here was, I found, the worst part of the turret. You see that little strip right here of 170? Let's highlight that. You see that flashing there? Yeah, that got penned kind of regularly, actually. I actually had a Jagdtiger 88 with AP pen there. Yeah, and I was actually slightly above him as well, so that was an interesting one. Obviously, like I was saying before, your turret side is incredibly weak, so people can actually, if you're actually at this kind of angle and you get kind of unlucky and people, maybe they're aiming for here, there's a potential that if they have anything bigger than a 90mm gun, they can hit here, which is 30, and the 35mm plate there can be overmatched by some of the bigger guns too. 105mm guns can overmatch that. RT loves this tank as well. 18mm on the roof of the turret and 30 on the roof of the hull. RT loves to shoot Emils, and look at that, 18 on the roof of the back as well. And if we look at the back of the hull, yeah, 30 there, 30 there. And yeah, and even on the back of the turret there, you can see there's the 20mm sections and another 18mm section. So yes, this tank does suffer even when RT misses. On the topic of the hull, your upper plate is 100mm, but your lower plate is 125. So on flat ground, your lower plate is tougher than your upper plate. But overall, you're talking about 190 to 200 effective, depending where they shoot. So there are some tanks that are same tier that will struggle with that without premium ammo. But in 2021, there's also a lot of tanks that will have no problem at your own tier as well. You do have a little turret ring section here, which is actually pretty tough. You can see the angle there, but that's really only if you're pointing straight on. That's going to come into play. Because if you're angled like that, and someone has a gun that's 105mm in caliber or bigger, you can expect them to go through your hull without any trouble. In fact, if it's 106mm, it'll overmatch. Yeah, and if you're at this angle, yeah, look at that. 140 effective, and we go up here, look at that. Really, it's only the tracks that are giving any real effectiveness along the sides here. So yeah, expect to get penned regularly if you're angled in the hull. especially against a lot of same tier heavies, because you're seeing a lot of 120, 122mm guns. In fact, even from tier 7 up, you're seeing a lot of 122mm guns. Hello, Russian IS-2s that are everywhere. Also, remember, you've got a lot of same tier tank destroyers that use guns that are over 105mm in caliber. You've got the German 128s, you've got the Chinese 130s, you've got Chinese 122s as well. You've got American 120s, you've got British 120s, well, not so much British 120s, you don't actually have those at that tier, but you will see British 120s as well, because you'll frequently come against tier 9 and 10 tanks. At least I certainly did in this thing. And they will punish you. Speaking of TDs, obviously there's a lot of tanks that have really high pen guns that will pen your turret front. If you're on flat ground, yeah, you're going to get penned, especially if someone presses 2. And if you're above them, this is when your turret armor does become a little better. Now, against APCR, remember how I was saying that it has better like high, like maximum pen value, but it actually has a worse effectiveness against angled armor. You can see there, against the same type of ammunition, we get about 310 effective, 320, about 280 to 290 on those little cheeks there, and 340 on the upper plate. Well, if we change this to a tank with AP, let's just take the T-34. I'm just going to use standard ammo. You can actually see that that effectiveness drops dramatically to, yeah, 288 all the way up to 293 on the, with a tiny little bit of like 400 there on the turret. And you can see that even the mantlet becomes much less effective. The cheeks kind of stay the same roughly, again, about 5 to 10 millimeters difference there. But you can see on the upper plate, 290, that's dropped by 30 millimeters effective there. Like, sure, it's an auto bounce angle at this, but you can actually see that that is just the difference between AP and APCR. Now if we throw heat into the mix, so let's take the T-77. Now that uses heat for a premium. That's 299, but we're just looking for the effective values. We can actually see that the effectiveness is still not too bad. But look at the cheeks. They start to become a little weaker as well. In fact, the gun mantlet, yeah, that's probably the weakest part against heat. Your turret actually is better against heat than against AP, but there's also a lot of heat shells that will have no trouble going through that, because like I say, you see tier 9 and 10, and a lot of those have 330 pen heat shells lurking around. And so you keep that in mind. 250 heat pen shells, like on the preferential matchmaking tanks, will probably not go through your turret at angles where you're above them. But that's just the best case scenario. A lot of the time you're going to be more like this. And yeah, you're not always going to be using the maximum gun depression. You're not always going to be above people. You might even just be using your gun depression to like peek up behind a ridge, but that a lot of the time what that does is it keeps your plate more like this, and you can see just how much lower the effectiveness is there. And even like you're more often, in my experience, at this kind of angle, which if we just, I'm just going to reset the gun depression so the actual turret front doesn't change in terms of angle, so you're at this kind of angle quite a lot. So 280, 290, 260 here against heat. But then if we look at a very common opponent that's +1 tier, we're going to take the T-30. The T-30 is a fairly common sight at tier 9. And yeah, oh dear. Oh dear. Yeah. So what can I say about this tank's armor? It's not as good as people think. That the turret is nowhere near as good as people think it is. Like, you'll see people go, oh, but doesn't it have amazing turret armor? No, it doesn't. Far from it. It's very situational when it's good. A lot of the time it's not. A lot of the time you're going to get penned frontally. Even by standard ammo in some cases. Like, remember I was saying that I got penned by a Jagdtiger 88 with AP. In fact, let me show you exactly what he did. So take the Tiger 88. There's AP. So we've got 212 pen. He went right through here. Look at that. That's 225 effective. He had to do just a tiny little high roll to pen that. Just a tiny high roll. That's plus 10 millimeters. That's not even plus 10%. Because remember, in fact, you can actually even pen here. Look at that. Look at that. You got that 85 millimeter strip. There's actually places you can pen with AP at a fairly high chance if it hits there with Tiger 88 AP. This turret is not good, guys. Look at that. Even like against these shells from the Tiger 88, against AP shells in general, yeah. And even if you're slightly above them, you still got a chance to high roll with AP. So there's still chances that they can pen you, and I've had it happen on stream. So yeah, armor on this thing, not good. So this is a tank that I feel doesn't know what it wants to do. It doesn't know if it wants to be a hull down monster, or it doesn't know if it wants to be like a medium or a heavy hybrid. It doesn't know if it wants to be able to, be a breakthrough tank. It doesn't know if it wants to be a hull down monster. It doesn't. It really. This is a tank that doesn't know what it wants to do, because it just doesn't feel like it has the potential to really excel in any one particular area. It doesn't have anything good going for it other than the gun depression and the clip potential. That's it. Those are your two things you're going to be relying on most in this tank. You will occasionally bounce shots, and you will see a couple of shots bounce in the replay that I'll show you. But yeah, most of what you're going to see in the replay is me just punishing people for their mistakes, which is what you're going to be doing mostly in this tank. You're going to be looking out for people making mistakes. You're going to be looking to catch people out of position and capitalize on that. Speaking of the replay, there we go. Thank you, OBS. This was probably the best result that I had in this tank, and it was absolutely a scuffed as fuck match. Tier 8 match on Cliff. We're on the north spawn. This is traditionally the more difficult spawn to win from, because the enemy team on south spawn has much easier and safer routes into the middle of the map, either on E3 here or all the way on to F6 here. Like, the enemy team is just much safer in their approach there than this side of the map. So what's going to happen is we're going to start heading up this way. Now, enemy bulldog goes up there. I'm not going to be able to shoot him. This thing, obviously, very slow going up that hill. Really kind of sluggish. And all my other heavies are on the other side of the map. They're on the one line there. I see this Type 59 going to try and get a shot. I'm loaded. I just look through the bush. Get a shot off. Someone else puts a shot in. I think that was the TL1. And then I just lurk just to see if he'll try and get another shot and finish him off. I didn't really want that guy lurking there. And I'm on the reload now. I knew that I wouldn't have a good shot at the bulldog if he peeked. And as we saw, he barely showed any of his tank anyway. But we spotted him, so we know he's up there still. It's not the last we're going to see of him. Unfortunately, that projectile, yeah. Those enemy projectile 54s, yeah, they kind of get the middle to themselves for a little bit here. Now, one thing that you're going to want to kind of learn how to do in any autoloader, and this one's no different, is timing your reloads. You're going to see this a lot from me, where I might have 1 or 2 shots left in the mag, but I just go for a reload anyway. Now, I'm chilling out right now because I know the bulldog's still up there. We respot him, and fortunately for us, the scorpion blasts him. So he's low health now. He's probably not going to want to risk too much. He's getting shot by the UDES and the STRV also. Unfortunately, the STRV didn't pen. He only hit the tracks. These potatoes now getting a little more confident, but this is when we punish them. Let our aiming circle decrease a bit before peeking, get the first shot, second shot, and third all in. That was fairly short range. That's where not aiming fully can actually work. And we had the cover of the 122 as well, so we were fairly hull down also. They didn't have easy shots on me. So we're just in a safe spot, just getting the reload off. Enemy mediums on the left there, TL1 and Progetto. Just making sure that I'm ready just to clip people out. One of the Progettos moving into the open there. 703 makes a push. Again, here we are just punishing a mistake. We are going to take a shot for this, but it's going to be worth it. So he takes a shot at us. You can actually see what I mean. We take a hit, breaks our ammo rack. T-44 does shoot us, but we get spotting on him. He gets punished. This guy, he's going for the second shot. Doesn't get it. Scorpion's ready for him. Then we see the Carnarvon spotted on the left as well. So we're just going to end up getting the reload for free. That Carnarvon is stock. We can tell that by the 1500 health as well. Enemy TL1 making a mistake also here. We're going to be able to put a shot into his side there. Bit of a low roll. But we're going to get spotting on him as well. Hopefully our TDs can clean him up because we don't really have much of a shot there. They get him. Good. So you can see here that I've only fired one shot in the clip. Yes, I had 2 shots left, but I actually go for a full reload. This is because I want to be fully loaded in case the Progetto or the Carnarvon decide to press W key, or even the T-44-100. And we can actually see there's the Progetto. I'm not loaded yet, but he gets spotted by the TDs, and he gets punished. And just as we reload, we get to finish him off there. And we also spot the Carnarvon for our team. So we get a little bit of spotting there. Unfortunate first shot, that goes into the upper plate instead of lower. Last shot goes lower. Now we get the last... Well, we get another reload on him. So he's going to stick around there. Like I said before, he is stock, so he has the small gun. So he's actually going to struggle to pen us frontally. And he's just straight up not going to pen the turret with standard ammo. And he's probably going to struggle with premium actually on that gun as well. So we actually spot him here. He doesn't spot us in return. Bit of a weird angle. It seems like none of the vision supports in his tank could actually see us there. One shot, high roll. Second shot, very low roll. He lives on 41. So going for another reload. Again, I want to be on a full clip as often as possible. So then I can be ready for anything. Just looking at my team there. This was on stream, by the way, so I was going, what the hell team doing? Hello? We spot the Udes there. Friendly STRV gets a shot on him. And he burns for all his health. Thanks to the 1000 spotting, Mr. Udes. Nice shot by the STRV driver there. Good shot. So now looking for the Carnarvon again. He has pulled back into a more annoying position. I'm also looking to see if I'll get spotted here. I do actually get spotted. We're at a good angle for the T-44 to bounce off of us with APCR. He actually, I believe that hit... Where did that hit? That hit the gunmanlet, I think. From what I remember. So he would actually struggle to pen that, even at an angle. Like it was presented. Just chilling out for the moment. Enemy team are still trying to push in. There's the T-34-3 spotted on the right. Actually pulling back so I can shoot him across this way. As we can see here, I can actually just crawl back this way. The Carnarvon, as we see there, crossfire. He actually hits our turret front as well with AP. Looking for the shot in the Borsig. He's got the most dangerous gun in the enemy team out of the ones remaining. Finish him off. Excellent. Trying to get the shot in the back of the T-34-3. You're going to see the fully aim. That missed. That went up and to the right. I go for the reload again because we got the T-44 here. However, he is actually being very cautious. He's just staying around this corner trying to keep me spotted. Unfortunately for the T-44, that's also the wrong decision to make here. If anything, he should have been helping that T-34-3. But, as we're going to see shortly, we get the reload. I know I've got health. I'm happy to take one hit. And take the trade here. He's gone. And the Carnarvon just bounces off us again. You can see what I was meaning about this match being kind of scuffed now, right? Look at this graveyard of tanks around us. SCRV now pushing in on the Carnarvon. Now the Carnarvon is really going to struggle to pen that guy frontally. even with premium. T-34-3 on our right here, he tries to shoot the STRV. That STRV is going to kill the Carnarvon. This guy's... He is reloading, but I actually stopped because then... Well, that guy's got a 390 alpha gun that won't really struggle to pen me. It's a 122, remember, on the T-34-3. So, I just chill. I see the UDES coming down off of the hill, so I'm like, you know what? Let's just stay alive. Let's let the UDES creep in. So then he can help finish this guy off. Just waiting for this guy to come up. This guy's like, you know what? I got full health. Let's get the one shot T-34-3. Moving in now to try and get him. T-34-3 is going to shoot the UDES. Unlucky with RNG there, but then I mess up the next two shots. I aimed at the upper plate there instead of lower, so it went into the upper. And poor shot from me on that second one, but he's going to die to the UDES there. There he goes. He takes the trade. Good lad. And that's the match. That was, unsurprisingly, an ace tanker in the Emil. 5,346 damage and 2,200 assistance. All of that was spotting as well. This was really good for my gun marks. This actually put me really close. I think it was like 94.7 or something like that. It was not the third mark match in this case, but it didn't take me too much longer to finish it off after this. This was easily the most frustrating tank that I've 3-marked. The gun does not like to behave at anything other than up point blank, essentially. Not fully aiming, you're gonna have shots just miss time after time after time. If you have to snapshot, this is not the tank to do it in. You will get the very rare one here and there, but it's not reliable for doing that. The soft stats are just not good enough for that. The reload is fine for, you know, the damage output of the gun when it can pen, but this tank really struggles in up tiers. It struggles in any match where it's not allowed to just get reloads off or do trades or even just sit hold down. Same tier matches it can do okay. It'll do best against -1 or -2 tiers because, well, frankly, it's too slow to relocate effectively. So the Sommieu from the French line, the AMX 5100, these are actually more effective autoloaders in situations where you have to be able to pull back and relocate. Obviously, the AMX 5100 doesn't really have armor either, but it does have better pen. I mean, the gun handling's still not good on that thing, but at the very least has view range, so it can actually play more like a medium. The Sommieu actually has better armor overall than this tank. It can side scrape, and it's got a better upper plate. The turret can still sometimes bounce shots, just not all the time. It still has gun depression, so yeah. What other autoloaders do we have? Oh yeah, we've got the IS-3A, which just absolutely dominates this tank as a heavy tank goes. I really kind of feel like this tank, the Emil, is kind of one of the worst ones at the moment. Maybe when this tank was introduced, it was actually pretty decent, but with how things are right now, especially with how we're seeing quite a few tier 8s come in with very high pen on the guns, like for example, the T77 that we looked at in tanks.gg, that has about 227 standard ammo pen, so it's got an extra 10mm standard ammo pen. In fact, I think it's even more than that. I think it's maybe 230-ish roughly. Far better pen on standard ammo than this tank, and on premium, it doesn't struggle with anything. You've got 299 heat pen on that thing. That's not going to struggle with anything you meet. This tank will. Hell, this tank struggles against a lot of same tiers. If you're ever on a city map where you're not able to go hull down at all, you're really going to struggle against things like AMX M449s. You're going to struggle against things like IS-3s. You're going to struggle against Tiger 2s, actually, surprisingly. Oh, especially after the buffs now. Tiger 2s are actually bullies in 2021, which is pretty crazy to say. So yeah, and VK100s will just absolutely shit on you. And obviously, like I say, if you're able to catch someone out of position, you can clip them, and that is still going to hurt regardless of what tank it is. As long as you can pen all those shots, this tank can still hurt people. Just, yeah, APCR and low pen don't really go together very well, so, yeah. Overall, I don't recommend this tank, nor do I recommend the premium Emil 1951. It's essentially the same tank, just with worse gun handling, but slightly better power to weight. That's all you're going to get out of the premium. Neither of these tanks are good at all. They both need buffs. And in fact, actually, the premium has a little cupola on the turret that can actually be shot without too much difficulty. I'm pretty sure there are guns that can overmatch it as well. So, yeah. These are tanks that definitely need a buff. There's a few things that I would like to see Wargaming do with them. I would love to see Wargaming either buff the turret armor, or buff the gun handling, buff the view range, or the mobility. They don't need to do all of those. It would be, obviously, it would be amazing if they did. I think this tank would be really, really good if it had maybe like 15 or 16 horsepower per ton with slightly better turret armor. Maybe give it, you know, an extra 20 millimeters raw thickness at most on just overall on the front of the turret. The hull, I would maybe buff the sides to 50 just so it doesn't get lol penned by every 120mm gun in existence, which are a lot, or even like any gun that's above 105, which there are a lot of those. So then it can actually somewhat, you know, angle, which heavies kind of need to. The view range doesn't need a lot, 370, 380 base, just so it's not struggling too much there for how this tank is supposed to play. And the gun handling is probably the biggest thing on this tank. Even more so than the pen. The pen is a bit of a struggle as well. But honestly, this tank, if it had 220 standard, like maybe 260 premium pen, plus everything else. I mean, there's a lot that they could do this tank. They don't necessarily need to do everything, but there's a lot of options in terms of buffing this tank. And good God, does it need it. Anyway, guys, hopefully you guys liked this video. I'm going to say right now, if you do play this tank, take every opportunity to go hull down that you can, especially if it's above another tank that you can shoot down on them from, because that's going to give you the best opportunity to pen your target efficiently with either of your ammo choices. Why do I not take HE into account here? Because with autoloaders you really can't be like switching ammo type too much. So I would really just stick to both of the APCR types in order to kind of avoid screwing yourself out of switching between one or the other, which in autoloaders can often be a real pain compared to standard single shot guns. I would also recommend playing this purely in a platoon, because then if you've got a platoon mate, you've got someone who can cover you while you reload, or can bounce shots for you, can act as, you know, rolling cover if they're using a very well armored tank, or if they're using like a medium or a light tank, can spot for you as well. And certainly this is not a tank that is good on its own. It needs tanks that can help it in a match. It needs teammates that can support it, that it can rely on to do well. We saw that this match as well. We certainly had teammates we could rely on. Those TDs that we had, fantastic. We can see that the STRV got himself 4 kills. The Scorpion also was getting shots in really well. He managed to take out the 703 when we needed him to. He got 3 kills actually overall also. So yeah, shout outs to the TDs. Shout outs to where have we got? Turk Reloaded and Oleg. GG you guys. And actually a little shout out to the little guys. Cuba 537. I like the aggressive play at the end. He was like, oh, you know, full health, YOLO. You know? Shout out to those guys. Anyway, I know this has been a longer video, but this tank did make me mauled quite a bit. So I kind of wanted to rant a bit. So, extra bonus long video for you guys this time. Anyway, that's all from me for today. Until the next one, guys. Peace out.